This lesson is on how to read charts and graphs.
So what are charts and graphs? Charts and graphs are visual representations of information. Normally they show how two or more things relate.
To read a chart, first read the title. That's going to tell you what information the chart is displaying. Next, read what is in the rows, and then read what is in the columns.
Let's take a look at this example. So let's read the title. The title is The 10 Largest Cities in 1900 and Their Populations Today. So I know that this is talking about cities and their populations. Now let's read what's in the column headings. Those are over here. So we have the population in 1950, its rank, the population in 2000, its rank, and the percent of 1950. So the different columns represent the different populations.
Now let's look at the columns. The column over here has cities in it.
Let's see if we can find some information from this chart. Let's look at Philadelphia. We can see here that Philadelphia has a population of 2 million and was the third largest city up here in the year 1950. Then in the year 2000, it had a population of 1.5 million, which was the fifth largest city. And the percent of 1950 is 73, which means that its population in the year 2000 is 73% of what it was in the year 1950.
Next, we're going to look at how to read a graph. First, read the title and determine what two pieces of information are going to be represented. Next, look at the x-axis. That is the piece of information that's going to be along the bottom of the graph. Then look at the y-axis. That's going to be the information that's on the side of the graph. Next, pick a point on the graph and try to figure out what that point means. Lastly, and most importantly, look for trends. Trends are patterns. For example, as one piece of information decreases, does the other decrease along with it, or does it increase? We're going to now look at an example of how to read a graph. So first we look at the title, World Population 1950 through 2050. So this graph is going to show us the world's population, and it's going to tell us the world's population for each year. If we look along the x-axis, we see that it's the year, 1950 all the way to 2050. And the y-axis is the population in billions. So now let's pick a point and figure if we can determine what that means. So let's say right here. This point on the graph, we look down and we see that it represents the year 2010, and then we look at the population. So we go over to the y-axis, and we see that it's a little bit less than 7 billion people. So this graph has told us that in 2010, there were a little bit less than 7 billion people on the planet. Now let's look at some trends. So as the year increases down here, we see that the population also increases. So that tells us that as we move forward in time, the world's population is getting larger.